Hello, welcome. We're excited to get started. It looks like we've got a lot of people coming on board. And I want to first introduce myself. I'm Robin Wolff. I'm the Senior Program Director of Rural Housing with Enterprise Community Partners. And we're going to take a few moments to wait for everybody to get on. We should have over 100 folks here on the call today, and it looks like we're all coming in pretty quickly. So thank you for your timeliness, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes before we get officially started for everybody to get on. While we wait, we'd love to learn a little bit more about you. So Adrienne is going to launch a poll for us, and if you could take some time to answer the questions. And sorry for the typo on Wyoming there. We were doing this last minute, so so just bear with us on some of that. But yes, please take a second to answer your poll questions, and we will get started in just a moment. Okay, sounds great. So we are going to, Adrienne, if we can end that poll and share that poll with folks, that'd be great. It looks like we have a good representation from the region, in the Mountain West region, with Montana, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah all represented. And then we have a lot of folks from other parts of the country, and that is the beauty of being able to do this in a virtual space. So that's really exciting, and we're excited that you're here. You'll find that this conversation in the morning in particular is really for a national audience, but we do hope to give some really good information for our folks here in the Mountain West region. We also see that the majority of folks are from nonprofit housing organizations, which is great. Those are the groups that we've been working with here at Enterprise and are excited to have you here. There's also some public housing authority, property owners, management organizations, and public sector partners. All of you, I hope, will have some great things to learn from this session, and we're excited to have you here. So thank you so much for joining us. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. The webinar is being recorded. You should have seen that when you came in. All audience members are muted as you log in. Again, my name is Robin Wolff. I work with Enterprise Community Partners. Please use the chat feature to submit questions. You can also use the Q&A. The Q&A we will be able to monitor, and we will be able to answer your questions live. All participants will receive a copy of the webinar recording and PowerPoint slides that have been presented. And of course, please be patient with technical difficulties as we come to you from this new space. And with that, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that my part of this conversation is coming to you from the native lands of the Arapaho and Northern Cheyenne tribes, and pay due respect to the tribal leaders and members. The legacy of the land here in Colorado is fraught, but despite the maltreatment and neglect that has persisted for generations, Native Americans have contributed much to the fabric of our nation and to our state. As we discuss preservation, it is fitting that we acknowledge and consider the history of the land so that we can create a better sense of connection, relation, and to one another and the spaces in which we occupy. So if you're interested in learning more about the lands that you sit on and who were the original inhabitants of that land, I will share a link with you in the chat. I also want to let you know the agenda. The agenda here is welcome and intro. That's right now. 2020 picture of preservation with our guest speaker from the National Low Income Housing Coalition, Andrew Aurand. Insights on preservation from the data with Enterprise's Andrew Jacobowicz. Q&A, we have some time for Q&A. The USDA, then multifamily team will provide some updates for us on the reorg. We'll have an open forum for questions and answers with that team. We have an hour lunch. And I hope folks come back to join us for the stakeholder panel. I think the stakeholder panel will be really rich with speakers from the USDA multifamily team, Fannie Mae, Enterprise Community Investments, property owners, folks who have gone through the 515, 538 transfer. So lots of folks to help us out on that session. And then we will have some specific buyer and seller breakouts at the end. So it should be a very good overall day, and I'm looking forward to spending it with you. So right now I'd like to turn it over to Susan Anderson. Susan Anderson is the Senior Director with Enterprise Community Partners, leading the work of the Rural and Native American Program Team. Through her career, Susan has worked across a spectrum of national initiatives, including transit-oriented development and building sustainable organizations. And it is my pleasure to be able to work with her and to turn this over to her today.
Great. Thank you, Robin. And really just want to say good morning to everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning and throughout the day. We're really excited about our lineup of speakers and the content that will be delivered, and want to also just say thank you to Robin for all of the work that she's done in putting together not just the conference today, but all of the other preservation efforts that we've been leading in the state of Colorado. I'm just really proud of the work that she's been doing, so thank you, Robin. And with that, I just wanted to tell you all a little bit about Enterprise Community Partners for those that aren't familiar, and share a little bit about our work. Enterprise is a national organization working on affordable housing and community development, really through the lens of understanding that home is more than just a unit or a house, but really can help provide access to opportunities and higher quality of life. On the rural and Native American programs here at Enterprise, our work has really focused around providing funding and training, along with technical assistance to our housing partners on the ground to build their capacity to deliver healthy, safe, green, affordable housing in rural and Native communities. And our current priorities consist of obviously preservation of rural housing and the development of homeownership opportunities, as well as rental housing in rural communities, and explicitly for our Native partners. So with that, next slide, I wanted just to highlight a little bit about the work that we're doing around preservation. Of course, this conference today is part of our larger efforts specific to the state of Colorado. We have a Rural Rental Housing Preservation Academy, which really is a series of trainings that dig into preservation of rural housing. You know, examples of what we dig into is, for example, the USDA 515 transfer process, as well as other potential financing sources, deal structuring, supportive policy that can happen at the state level, as an example of that. And we're also coupling our training with technical assistance. Enterprise is the TA provider for the Western region under USDA's 515 preservation contract. So appreciate having that contract and being able to couple technical assistance with our training efforts. And then the other piece of our preservation platform has been around capital. So we have been able to provide pre-development grants for our CDC and nonprofit partners around preservation efforts. Of course, Enterprise is also a syndicator. We have a loan fund. Next slide, Robin. Thank you. So without further ado, just want to again thank you all for being here today, and give a nod to our partners that have been supporting this work. Without them, this work wouldn't be possible. The Colorado Health Foundation, Fannie Mae, and the Colorado Trust. And with that, I'd like to introduce Andrew Aurand. He is the Vice President for Research at the National Low Income Housing Coalition. It's a national research policy and advocacy organization with a mission dedicated to achieving socially just public policy that ensures people with the lowest incomes have affordable and decent homes. And Andrew leads NLHC's research team, annually documenting the housing needs of low-income renters, published in The Gap and Out of Reach. And he also conducts policy research about affordable housing. Recent reports from Andrew include the long-term recovery of the rental housing after Superstorm Sandy and the low-income housing tax credit program at 30 years. The research team also co-manages the National Housing Preservation Database to support the preservation of publicly subsidized affordable housing. And we're so grateful to have Andrew with us today and present on some of their latest research around preservation. So thank you, Andrew, for joining us, and I'll turn it over to you. Andrew, I think you're on mute.
I am sorry about that. You'd think by now I would remember to hit those buttons. So
wouldn't be a Zoom call without that happening.
So as Susan said, the National Low-Income Housing Coalition is a national research, policy, and advocacy organization where we focus on federal policy that ensures lowest income households have adequate and decent housing. We're a membership organization and we have nearly 1,000 members. But many of our members are other organizations. And so when we send out our calls to action to call legislators, or we send out our fact sheets or our research materials, we have I think a subscriber list of about nearly 180,000 people that we send our materials to. I'm head of the research team, and one of our research responsibilities is to co-manage the National Housing Preservation Database. We manage that with a partner called the Public and Affordable Housing Research Corporation, which is a nonprofit organization that's based in Connecticut that focuses on the benefits of public and affordable housing, why public and affordable housing are important, and they also help provide tools to the affordable housing industry. So PARC and the coalition co-manage the National Housing Preservation Database, which is a national database. You know, I think some of you are probably familiar with it. It's a most federally subsidized properties that are subsidized through HUD, USDA, and the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit. It's the only national database that using a combination of 10 different data sources from HUD, Treasury, and USDA, where you can see for each property, all of the subsidies from the various programs that are attached to that property, and when each of those subsidies or those affordability requirements expire. In addition to the database itself, if you go to preservationdatabase.org, that website also includes a preservation profile for each state, which is basically a summary of expiring restrictions and affordable housing needs for each state. There's webinars that we have recorded on how to use the database, and also on strategies that states and localities have adopted and are using throughout the country to preserve subsidized affordable rental housing. And then there's a couple of reports on that site as well. About a year and a half ago, we published a report on the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program and properties that were reaching the end of their extended affordability periods. And then just a couple of months ago, we released a new report called The Picture of Preservation. And in that report, we focused on the threats to our subsidized affordable rental housing stock and how federal subsidies are being used for preservation. And most of my comments today are from that report, and it'll basically give a general national overview of our threats to the subsidized affordable housing stock and our preservation needs. And if you go to the next slide, you know, I probably don't need to tell you, oh, I'm sorry, I missed a slide. So that's the slide, that's the homepage of the National Housing Preservation Database. If you go to preservationdatabase.org, you can register. If you're a nonprofit, you can register for free, find data on all subsidized properties, and then our webinars and reports as well. And then on the next slide, and I probably don't need to tell you, I'm sorry, the next slide. Sorry about that. I forgot that I added those 2 additional pictures in there. You know, there's multiple threats to our subsidized housing stock. And so, you know, Vincent Reyna and us and others sort of see these different categories of risk. And, you know, the first risk is obviously exit risk. You know, properties exit out of their subsidized or affordable housing program. So rental contracts in the Section 8 project-based rental assistance program, they come up for